Welcome back guys to another video. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video. Let's get started. Chapter 6. Naruto, A Love for Milim. Chapter 6. Alliance, Life in Tempest, and a Show of Power. The conference room was nowhere comparable to the one in Crimson Crystal Castle, but it was tolerable enough for Naruto to allow Milim to sit on one of the chairs around the only round table inside it. He sat closely next to Milim. Rimuru sat on the opposite side of them with his people sitting on his right and left side. And as always, Haku stood faithfully on Milim's left side. She had refused the chair offered by the pink-haired girl whose name was Shana. "You can speak," said Milim with hands folded on her breastplate. Air of superiority was dancing around her petite figure. She was not smiling nor grinning. Naruto could clearly tell that his beloved Milim was trying so hard to keep her stoic expression intact. She was trying to maintain her dignity as the Empress of Nava Empire. "You heard her," Naruto said and asked Rimuru to begin the conference. "It is a great honor for us to have you Emperor Naruto and Empress Milim in our city," began Rimuru. He was a salaryman back then, so hosting this conference and persuade them to help him make his city better would not be hard, hopefully. "We have discussed a few things before your arrival, and we have sorted most of the things that really matter. But before that, allow us to ask you a simple question." "Go ahead," said Milim. Naruto had asked Milim to be in charge in this talk. She had to use this chance to deepen her understanding on how to be a proper empress. Rimuru nodded his head. "Is it really okay to have the monsters inside your capital?" "Nothing to worry about. My word is law, no one will go against my word." "I'm happy to hear that. Now then I will point out the term of agreements of this alliance. 1. As per Empress Milim's request, Tempest is to sell 80% of honey production to Nava Empire. 2. As per Emperor Naruto's request, Tempest is to open a shop in the capital of Nava Empire. Tempest will provide 70% of healing potion production to sell in the shop and are allowed to sell anything they want as long as it is not against the Empire's rules. 3. Nava Empire will provide building materials to further improve Tempest country for free. In return, Tempest will be using the coin of Nava Empire as its currency. 4. Tempest citizens are allowed to travel to Nava Empire and have the right to become the student of the Knight and Mage Academy should they pass the test. In return, Nava Empire's citizens are allowed to live in Tempest. They will be given the same right as Tempest's citizen. 5. Both Nava Empire and Tempest country will have 2 of their people as the representatives in each other capital. 6. Due to Tempest country is a new country, Nava Empire will assist Tempest in the time of need if Tempest asks for help. Tempest will have the same obligation in the years to come. Rimuru stopped talking and looked at Milim. Naruto took note that the slime seemed to understand that as long as he got Milim's approval then he would get his too. Perhaps it was true though, as long as it did not hurt Milim then likely he would agree to anything. Milim brought her right hand on her chin and closed her eyes, thinking. It made all the Tempest's monsters to hold their breath in anticipation, wondering what should they do if the Empress against the term. But Naruto knew better. Milim was not considering the term, she was pretending. He had no doubt that his beloved Milim did not give a damn about the rest of the term beside the point 1, she concerned only her honey. Knowing this brought smile to his lips. He should actually show his displeasure to the girl, but he came to take pleasure in watching her pretending instead. Perhaps he had become too obsessed toward Milim. He would not mind destroying the world if it would make her smile. Naruto didn't dislike it though. This unhealthy love for Milim was what made him survive in this world. "All right, I agree to all the terms except the point 1. Milim finally said, making the other tense at her disagreement toward one of the terms. Rimuru acted fast. "Please tell us then, Empress Milim." Milim folded her hands back and stared at Rimuru. "I want 90% of the honey production." Before his people could voice out their concern, Rimuru beat them to it. "I'm sorry Empress Milim, but we need honey too. By selling 80% of honey to you, we have minimalized our consumption of honey. If we increased it to 90% then we will not have enough honey distributed to our people. Please reconsider." "Fine, 85%, or there will be no agreement." "That's final." Everyone seemed to understand it. Should Milim being denied of her demand then it would be bad for Tempest. They were aware of that. All eyes being directed at the personification of the slime was the proof of their understanding. At least that was the good part. Milim perhaps would leave this place the moment they rejected her demand, but Naruto knew that Milim would never let it go. She would no doubt ask him to get the honey. Of course Naruto would not deny her that. Having a vassal was not bad after all. Rimuru sighed in a defeated breath. Fine. We will sell 85% of honey production to you. Milim nodded her head. Good, good. Now how we seal the deal. Rimuru brought out 2 enchanted papers and stood up from his seat before finally made his way to Haku's left side. We will imbue our signature energy into these papers and each of us will keep it so that it will not be broken easily. The only way to break the deal is to destroy the paper, but if one is destroyed then another one will get destroyed as well, explained Rimuru as he put his left hand on each paper and inserted his magic into it. Milim nodded and put her left hand on each paper. Naruto left his seat and changed place with Haku. He put his left hand on each paper as soon as Milim done. Rimuru smiled after it all done. He gave 1 paper to Naruto and kept 1 to himself. To solidify it he stretched his right hand to Naruto, which soon being accepted, and they shook hands. Rimuru offered his hand to Milim after done with Naruto, but it was not Milim who accepted his hand, it was Naruto again. Thinking that Naruto had mistaken his intention, Rimuru tried to offer his hand to Milim again, but like before, Naruto was the one who took it. Before Rimuru could open his mouth, Naruto strengthened his grip on Rimuru's hand. He leaned closer to him and whispered, "This is the very first rule you have to obey so that we will not have problem with this alliance. Never ever lay your filthy finger to my Milim, no matter the reason, that is the sin beyond blasphemy." Rimuru forced his smile. "Oh okay," he said. "This guy has an unhealthy obsession toward Milim?" Naruto let go off of Rimuru and turned facing Milim. He offered his beloved girl a small smile and said, "Let us go, dear. Let's visit some place and find a good food to eat. Haku will replace us here to talk further about this alliance." Naruto did not wait for Milim's response. He swept her from her seat and carried her in bridal style. He ignored all eyes and walked straight toward the exit door. Haku watched as her masters left. She turned her eyes to Rimuru when her master's figures had fully disappeared. "Is there something else we need to discuss?" Oh, Naruto walked side by side and hand in hand with Milim. They walked in a slow pace through the busy street of Tempest City. People gave them space, which being appreciated by both Milim and Naruto, so even though the street was being crowded by many kinds of monsters, the middle part of the street was empty for the 2 people to walk. Even though they were not the ruler of the city, everyone knew that these 2 should be treated like the ruler they were. Their first stop was a takoyaki shop. Naruto was surprised by seeing that since it was a matter of fact that this world had no takoyaki, meaning there was an otherworlder here, or the slime simply learned it from otherworlder outside Tempest. But the most likely was that slime to be an otherworlder, even though he was born from Feldera's magic essence. There's no way a normal slime would be that strong. There's takoyaki in our empire, but still, want to try how this takoyaki compares to ours? Of course. We will try everything, responded Milim with sparkling eyes. Naruto smiled and a few clones appeared behind him. Without further instruction they vanished to the shops, buying all kind of foods they sold. While the clones were doing their job, Naruto and Milim continued walking, and they ended up on the nearby hill of the city. Either Rimuru have planned everything while standing on this hill, or it's just a mere coincidence. Regardless, it is beautiful to see and you can gaze at the whole city from here as well. Such a good place to relax and look over the city, don't you think so, Milim? But our cities are better. That should be obvious, dear. Our empire is the heaven on earth after all. I was just stating the fact. Sure you did. Come, let us sit there under the tree, my clones should be here soon, Naruto said and dragged Milim toward the biggest tree on the hill. He brought out a large thick fabric and put it under the big tree. He took 4 stones and put it on each corner of the fabric. After ensuring it was good, Naruto put off his shinobi sandals and sat on the fabric with his back leaning on the tree. Only then he motioned Milim to sit on his lap. Milim wasted no time and sat on her blonde's lap. She did not need to put off her boot. She could will it to disappear since it was still part of her armor. Naruto brought both his hands hugging Milim from behind. He put his chin on her right shoulder and let her fragrance to invade his nostril. "I am the man here while you are the woman. You should be the one to lay down the fabric, not me. Don't you think you should be more feminine, my dear Empress?" "Does that mean you do not satisfy with me, Naruto?" asked Milim in a concerned voice. Naruto tightened his embrace. No, that's not the case. You know that there is nothing I dislike about you. The only thing that I don't like is to see you holding another man's hand, but I believe such thing will never ever happen. Let's make it clear, you will not touch another man, no matter what, okay? Okay, does that mean I don't need to be you more feminine? Do you know how to be more feminine? No. You want to try? Milim leaned her head against Naruto's. How? She asked in a low voice. Want to try to be more formal and royal? Let's try with kimono, Naruto said and began imagining about the appropriate kimono for Milim. Athena's golden cloths/armors were not normal, it were magical, so of course it was possible to change its appearance the way the user liked. Because of that, Milim's golden cloth had changed appearance into a beautiful kimono. Get up and let me see you, said Naruto. He helped Milim to stand right in front of him. How? Asked Milim. Her cheeks were reddening, her long pink hair were waving gently. Naruto folded his hands on his chest and stared at Milim intensely. His beloved demon lord was covered in crimson kimono with white flower patterns on its surface. The kimono was tied with gold obi to keep it still. Her feet were covered in white stocking, it were still part of the Virgo cloth. Perfect, Milim looked like a goddess. Well, literally she was a goddess. But there's something missing from what he saw. Milim, put your right index finger on your lips and shift your head to the right, then look at me through the corner of your eyes. Like this. Yes? That is perfect. Now sit, then crawl to me. Milim nodded and did what he told her to do. Naruto, inwardly, smiled and stretched both his hands, spreading it wide, making a welcoming gesture for Milim. The demon lord as well as the Empress of Nava Empire crawled toward Naruto. She did not stop before him but continued till she made herself comfortable on his lap. Naruto then brought his hands back, hugging his beloved cute demon lord. Now you are the definition of feminine. Why don't we have the marriage ceremony right here and now so I can devour you in this instant? Asked Naruto in sensual voice as he licked Milim's right ear. Why, you are pervert. You are no less than me. No. Milim did not give any response. There's no need to respond at all. Being a dragonoid, she had a few traits that were similar to dragon. One of them was that she'd be possessive toward her mate. Another one was that she's loyal to death, and another one was that she'd often be in heat each time she touched her mate. That did not mean she's pervert. It's Naruto's fault for seducing her? Milim groaned and tightened her embrace on the blonde. Naruto smiled and tightened his hold on her too. They sat still for a moment, enjoying each other's presence in silence. This was one of the ways to suppress the heat they felt. Embracing each other tightly like this made their heart warm and peaceful. Though, their peace lasted only a few more minutes as 5 clones appeared beside them. Sorry for the wait, boss, said the clones as they set up the food on the fabric in front of both Milim and Naruto. Good, you can disappear. The clones did not disappear. Naruto frowned. I said you can disappear. The closest clone smiled. Sorry boss, but we are wondering if we can feed Milim Heim. Naruto growled. There's no way I will let your filthy self near my Milim, even though you are my stupid clone. There's no way I will share Milim. Now go away, disappear. Next morning Naruto opened his eyes and woke up. He glanced to his right side only to find the still sleeping Milim in her sky blue pajama, and she was drooling. It would be a good idea to take her picture and then blackmailed her to wear maid outfit and serve him for a week. Just by imagining it made Naruto's heart fluttered like it was going to explode. It was not good for his health. Naruto shook his head and threw away the idea. He then pinched her cheek trying to wake her up. Milim mumbled and unwillingly opened her eyes. Naruto welcomed her with his warm smile. So finally my beloved sleeper of Empress has awoken from her drooling yet beauty sleep. Milim smiled. Naruto, you have awoken. And I was not drooling, she yelled and took a sitting position. There's no way an awesome Empress such as me drooling, you're just imagining things. Naruto smiled. Perhaps, he said and walked out of the bed. I'm going to take a bath, want to join me? I need someone to wash my back. No, I will continue sleeping till you done. Milim said and laid herself back on the softness of the bed. Is that so? Well, perhaps Haku will not mind washing my back. No, I will wash your back, yelled Milim and jumped out of the bed in second. She undressed and asked Naruto to undress too. She then held Naruto's right hand and dragged him to the bathroom. Come, let us take a bath, Milim said with a flushing face. Later on, after having a delicious breakfast, the 3 figures decided to take different paths for today. Milim and Haku would tour the city again and look for something noteworthy that yesterday they did not get the chance to know about, while Naruto on the other hand would visit Rimuro to find more about the enigmatic slime who he thought to be from another world and have Rimuro informed him of the slime's previous world. Who knows that the slime's world is much more advances than both this world and my own, and that it may be different to the other worlders from the Empire. With that in thought, Naruto increased his walking speed and headed straight toward the slime's residence. It took not long for him to reach the Tempest's leader's residence. It was about 5 minutes walking in slow pace from the guest building. Rimuro's residence was located right beside the conference building, and Naruto found himself standing in front of the house just in time, the door being opened. Did you sense my presence? Naruto had concealed his presence. Rimuro should have skill in presence detection to be able to sense his presence. No, I believe it is just a coincidence that I opened the door when you arrived. Actually, I'm going to visit Vesta to tell him about the term of agreement so that he can begin mass producing the healing potion. Oh, that's right. How about you join me as well, Naruto? I believe Gazelle would be happy to see you, and since he and I are ally, then perhaps the three of us can build a strong alliance. What do you think? I see. I will join you, Naruto said and turned around, motioning Rimuro to lead the way. The reincarnated slime did not say lies. What he said was all the truth. Where is this Vesta working? Asked Naruto as he walked on Rimuro's left side. He is inside the cave where Feldora was sealed. Since you were born from Feldora's mana essence, then it is safe to say that you were born in that cave as well. I have two questions though. Are you an otherworlder? It'd be great to know whether you come from my previous world or not. And second question, where is Feldora now? Rimuro did not surprise to hear that the Emperor was an otherworlder too. He had met Shiza-san, who also was an otherworlder. That meant there were many otherworlders here in this fantasy world. Yes, I'm an otherworlder, but I'm being reincarnated unlike you and others, answered Rimuro. He paused for a while thinking whether to tell Naruto about Feldora or not. Don't worry, as long as you do not choose to be Milim's enemy, then there's nothing to be wary about. Just tell me about Feldora. Rimuro sighed. He is in my stomach. I ate him. Naruto blinked, his face stupefied. Sorry, what did you say? I devoured him so that I can figure out way to free him from the prison. I see, you have such an interesting ability. I take it we will not see Feldora anytime soon. It seems so. Naruto nodded his head and did not say any further. He did not mention that he could easily dispatch off the isolation prison that was cast on Feldora either. So, please tell me about your world, he said after a few moments of silence. And thus, the trip to the cave where Vesta resided was filled with Rimuro telling him about his world, and of course he also shared a little about his previous world to the slime. They did not take long time to reach the cave. As usual, an ever-eccentric Gable welcomed the two with his energetic and unique words. And of course screams saying how cool, Gable-sama were echoed throughout the cave. I'm sorry for that, Gable-kun is just unique, he and his loyal followers are rare specimens. Don't worry, it was actually quite funny. He'd be a good actor if he decides to join in a theater. I think so too. They both nodded at the thought of Gable performing in a parody theater. No doubt it bounded to make people laugh like there's no tomorrow. Then without wasting more time, Rimuro guided Naruto to Vesta's lab. It was located on the right side of the entrance toward a place where Feldora was sealed by the hero 300 years ago. People thought that the hero who sealed Feldora 300 years ago and the one who's saving the vampire queen was the same person, but the truth was not certain. There's also some believed that the one who saved the vampire queen was sleeping in a coffin in the confines of the vampire queen's residence. So they couldn't be the same person. However, the answer was not yet certain unless Feldora himself remembered the encounter he had with the heroes. Naruto did not bother thinking or finding answer about that though. Neither Feldora nor the hero could be a threat to both him and Milim. Only someone like Guy Crimson was a threat, and since Guy spoke highly of that Emperor of Eastern Empire, then he would place that first hero below the red-haired demon lord. Ah, Rimuro-sama, and the Emperor of Nava Empire. Vesta greeted Rimuro. How have you been? Naruto watched as they interacted. The man once was a minister of Dwarf Kingdom, but he's now a researcher of Tempest. But Naruto couldn't find any regret in the man's eyes. It were actually filled with passion and gratitude, indicating that he preferred his life now over the past. Naruto could relate the man to himself. Both had a new life that they loved so much. Rimuru truly was a kind man. Perhaps a naive kind man. The slime would eventually learn though, that his naive would cost him dearly, just like him in the past. Naruto would not lecture him though, but he'd be there when the slime needed him. Of course if the man did not become Milim's enemy and agreed to provide him with manga he's so proud of. Manga. It intrigued Naruto to some degree. I forgot to ask this last night. About the store building, shall we design on our own or you'll make it for us? Naruto shifted his eyes to the slime boy, leaving his thought from wondering the kind of manga he would read later. Just send your people to Nameiki City, my people will have everything prepared. Then it is settled, I will have some hobgoblin to head to the Nava Empire in a week to run the store. Rimuru said, in which Naruto nodded, then he turned his eyes back to Vesta. Now then, can you please call Gazelle? We would like to discuss things with him. Moments later, after done communicating with the king of Dwarf Kingdom, they both left the cave and Rimuru guided Naruto to Kurobe and Kaijin, the two best blacksmiths of Tempest. The two blacksmiths were hammering a katana-sized steel when they stepped into the room. From the looks of the soon-to-be blade, Rimuru theorized that the blade was to be given to Sui's underlings. Rimuru-dana, Emperor Dano, greeted Kaijin as he saw the two leaders visited his workplace. Kurobe followed Kaijin exampled in greeting the two visitors, but since he had work to do, only Kaijin who approached them and led the two to the seats at far end of the room. It is an honor to have you in our workplace. What can I do for you? Would you like to know the art of blacksmithing? Asked Kaijin in a spirited way that reminded Rimuru of that long troublesome day when he was forced to listen to Kaijin's and Kurobe's long discussion. Nothing of that sort. We just want to watch your work from here so you can go back to working, said Rimuru with a smile. He could not have Kaijin to start talking about blacksmithing because the dwarf would not stop talking for hours if he was to start. Must prevent him to talk, thought Rimuru. Naruto raised an eyebrow at Rimuru's words, but nonetheless he nodded his head and motioned the dwarf to continue his work. Mind to tell me how you get the dwarf to work for you? Asked Naruto as soon as Kaijin returned to helping Kurobe. And so Rimuru began telling his journey to the Dwarf Kingdom. He told the Emperor about almost all things he did there. Of course he left the fact that he had spent a special time there with some voluptuous and sexy elves. The two did not spend much time at Kaijin's and Kurobe's workplace. They left after an hour or so. Their next destination was the hill where Naruto and Milim spent some romantic time night prior. It took some time to reach the place since the two took a detour to have a better understanding of the Tempest's residents' behaviors, but at last they reached the hill, and Naruto finally got the answer about his question, that Rimuru did not intentionally build the Tempest there. It just happened that the goblins' tribe lived there and they asked him to help them, which soon escalated greatly to this point. It was not long after they sat seeing the city that an explosion shook the center of the city. Black smoke rose high and they could see it clearly from the hill. I guess we have to go there. An hour ago, with Milim and Haku decided to visit the forest and looked for the fresh honey. On their way to the forest they met Shina and one of Goblina named Harina, who then proposed themselves to accompany Milim and Haku. The forest itself was still dangerous despite it had a city at the middle of it. Shina said they had yet to secure the forest, but she assured that it would be taken care of as soon as possible. With more people became aware of their country than it was bounded for them to clear the path of which would lead the people to Tempest. The alliance would be useless if the people couldn't even reach the city by themselves after all. Milim did not really care though. The one who asked about that was no other than Haku. Milim's mind was solely focused on finding the fresh honey from wild bees at the moment. She really did not pay any attention toward what the girls were talking about. There, exclaimed Milim as she pointed her right index finger up on one of the tree's branches. Hurry up, Haku, take it, Milim commanded. Actually she'd take it herself the moment she caught sight of Bee's nest, but she had become a little afraid to get close to the bee after listening to the workers' explanation about how they came to get the honey. Sure that she's the strongest demon lord, but still, she didn't like Bee at all. As you wish, my lady. Milim watched intensely as Haku floated toward the bee's nest. Her eyes widened in horror the moment her personal guard being surrounded by hundreds of angry bees. She wanted to scream to warn Haku, but she couldn't do that with these two girls watching. She's an empress after all. Screaming would ruin her image. Milim let a relieved sigh escape her mouth when Haku created a water barrier around her, preventing the bees from targeting the demon. Here, my lady, said Haku as she offered her a cup made of ice which was filled by honey. She did not take the nest itself since she pitied the bees from losing their home they had created. Even though she's a demon, Haku had a kind of soft spot for animal. She don't like to see them suffered by the other's hand. Watching them killing and hurting each other was the best sight. Yup, Haku was somewhat a sadist, but she didn't like dirtying her hand directly on animal. Milim accepted the honey with a beaming smile. Let's return, she said and led the way out of forest while, of course, licking the honey on the whole walk. As soon as they returned to the city, they were welcomed by the sight of a beastman bullying Rigurd. Looking at the mockery befallen upon one of her vassals, Milim thought of Tempest as her minion countryman stirred a sense of the ruler in her heart. Milim gave the cup to Haku and disappeared from her place. She ignored Haku's yelled that asking her to stop and appeared above that beastman with a punch ready to hit his head. The beastman widened his eyes at the sudden appearance of Milim. He was so caught off guard and could do nothing to stop the punch. However, the punch failed to hit the beastman as an invisible wall preventing Milim's punch from hitting him. Haku then appeared right next to Milim and sent the barrier she made to hit the beastman, which then sent the man flying backward before falling hard to the ground. I'm sorry, Milim-sama, but Naruto-sama will be angry to me if I let you touch the beastman with your bare hand. Milim frowned. Her anger had yet to dissipate. If you still insist on punishing the beastman, then at least you have to cover your hand. It is a blasphemy to let your beautiful, holy hand to be tarnished by that filthy insect. Don't you think so? You are right, Naruto will not like it. Milim muttered and covered her hands with golden gloves. The beastman was not happy to be called insect. He growled and covered himself with flame before launching himself toward Haku. Haku smiled as she watched the beastman getting close. She raised her left hand and the man fell hard to ground soon after, causing his flame to explode and the smoke to rise up. The ground shook and debris went wild. Why you bitch? Haku did not give any verbal response to the curse. She let the man to stand, but after that she acted fast by pulling him toward her place. Gravity was Haku's one and only real magic. She was the best at it, so it was clearly impossible for the beastman to shrug off her gravity. And so, in only a second the man found himself being choked by Haku's strong grip. Haku smiled as she watched the man struggling to grasp for air. The sight was beautiful in Haku's eyes. She could think of many ways to make it more beautiful, but she sensed her master was getting closer to her position and forced herself to drop the man and kick him hard, making the beastman flying away dozens meters backward. She could not let her master to see this side of her. There's no doubt that Master Naruto wouldn't let her to be his beloved woman's personal guard if he came to know. So, Milim-sama, what will you do to him? Asked Haku with a kind, beautiful smile. Though, before Milim could answer, she was being hugged from behind by Naruto. What's wrong, dear? They are making me angry. That beastman was bullying Rigurd-san the moment we returned from the forest, my lord, added Haku with a kind smile. Oh, so that is why. I'm happy to hear that, dear. Thank you for defending my people, Milim, said Rimuro as he made himself known and stood next to Haku. But, please, can you let me handle this? I don't want to have a problem with Demon Lord Carrion after all. Naruto and Milim looked at the slime. Milim didn't like it, but Naruto smiled to the slime and said, of course, after all, he'd be dead if you let us handle him. Rimuro sighed, that is what I'm worried about. All right then, we will leave that little beast for you to handle, Rimuro, Naruto said, and carried Milim in his arms. The three crazy strong beings disappeared from the view a second later. Rimuro sighed again and shifted his eyes to the three beastmen ahead of him. So, who are you? Asked Rimuro. /o/Naruto, Milim, and Haku appeared on top of the nearby hill. Naruto sat right under the confines of the tree with Milim sitting comfortably on his lap. She had gotten her good mood back after Haku returned her honey. Haku on the other hand decided to give them some privacy by standing at the rear hill looking down at the city below. They are from Urizania country, a beastman country that is ruled by a self-proclaimed demon lord. What is his name again? Carrion. Ah, yes, Demon Lord Carrion. If that is the case, then it is safe to say that they are interested to have Rimuro as their subordinate. No. Maybe only Clayman and Carrion has the real interest. Frey seems to like following me for some reason. I don't know why, but she never stood on the opposite side of my intention. She always agreeing to whatever I said. I think Carrion is doing that for fun though. Clayman probably is the only one who wants to have Rimuro as his puppet for real. Naruto nodded in understanding. Well, why? Don't you tell me about all demon lords? I met only that neat Ramirez and Guy. I'd like to know about the other 4 and the self-proclaimed demon lords too. Later at night, forest outskirt Tempest 3 beastmen sat comfortably around a bonfire, but they were not in a good mood. Naruto did not care about that though. He was more interested with 2 stupid people hiding themselves from the beastmen. It seemed those stupid people wearing stupid cloths were waiting for the beastmen with certain ambition. No doubt that those 2 were Clayman's subordinate. Master, are you sure you are fine with leaving Milim-sama alone with your clone? It may try to touch Milim-sama. Naruto shifted his eyes to his left side. Don't worry, that stupid clone will not be able to bypass the barriers I set around Milim. I see, as expected of my lord. Naruto returned his eyes back on the ground below. Naruto and Haku were sitting on a tree's branch a few meters away to the beastman's left side while concealing themselves with Naruto's rune. The 2 stupid fools had made their move to manipulate the beastman. It seems Clayman indeed tries to make himself an awakened demon lord. That fool even dare to have Milim participated in his scheming. Such a fool. What shall we do then, my lord? Naruto smiled. Let's play him. Let's make him think that everything is going according to his plan. As you wish, my lord. The 2 vanished from the tree's branch a second after without leaving any trace, as if they were never there to begin with. Frey's castle. Frey sat in silence looking at the night sky. She had felt the awakening of Charybdis a day ago. It would be troublesome if that beast came out of the cave to look for a body to control, more so if there's someone who offered himself to be controlled. Even if she claimed herself to be a demon lord, she was nowhere strong enough to defeat Charybdis. She was not a physical fighter after all. Frey relied more on magic, and that Charybdis was immune to magic to some degree. Fighting it was similar to having a suicide, a foolish choice that she'd never made. Frey's thoughts were being interrupted by the 2 presences that came out of nowhere a few feet behind her. Frey acted fast and turned herself toward the intruders. She had herself readied should they become hostile. A few magic circles behind her was the proof that she was being very alerted. Who are you? She asked in a wary voice. Milim told me that you have never disagreed with whatever Milim wanted. Tell me, would you like to make your country as a part of Milim's empire? Frey studied the 2 people carefully. She couldn't tell their strength, as though they had complete control over their mana, which meant that they were easily above her level. The blonde man seemed to be fond of Milim. The way he mentioned his name reminded her of the way his late father mentioned his late mother's name. It filled with love. And that golden armor the black-haired woman was wearing, it was a high-level item. It was perhaps god-tier item or beyond. Frey sighed, there's no way out of this. So she responded sarcastically, do I have a choice? You do have a choice. Your country becomes the vassal of Nava Empire willingly and honorably, or forcefully and humiliatingly. Either way is fine for me, your choice. Frey sighed again. I don't want to cause unnecessary death for my people. Consider we are now your vassal. It's not like I have a chance even if I don't want to. Carrion's castle. Carrion sipped the juicy liquid down his throat. It felt good. Eurazania country had always proud of their juicy liquid that were made from fruits they harvested. Carrion was no different to the rest of his people. He was proud of this drink. Eurazania's fruit was known as the fruit with the best quality. None of the country that had better fruit than them existed. He poured more liquid into his glass after he drank it empty, and he began enjoying himself again with the drink. But soon his peaceful night came to a stop as soon as 2 figures appeared right on the middle of his office. They did not give off any malice intent, but Carrion felt something dangerous from them. Who are you? He asked as he leapt from his chair and stared at them dangerously. They were strong, dangerously so. Carrion wasted no time and turned himself into his true form and made his fighting stance. But it was a mistake on his part, a very bad mistake. No more than a second after his beastification took effect, he was being pinned down by the golden armor girl that he heard had participated in the Great War 500 years ago. He tried to break free from the woman's grip but failed miserably. The more he struggled, the stronger her grip became. It is embarrassing for Guy to have you in his group. The weakest of Demon Lord that I acknowledge are Romanas Valentine and Dino the Fallen. The 2 can kill you without much effort. And you dare to claim yourself as Demon Lord? I don't know what was Guy thinking when he accepted you into Demon Lord's rank, but perhaps it's just to make it 10. Naruto paused and looked down at the fallen Beastman King. Guy Crimson, Milim Nava, Ramaris, Dagrul, Dino, and Romanas. Those 6 are the true demon lords. Ramaris is not a fighter though, but she has a unique ability that makes me recognize her as demon lord. I don't know about this Leon Cromwell that Guy likes so much, but I doubt he is stronger than Romanas. Perhaps I should ask Guy to reorganize his group. Regardless, you will continue to be demon lord and support Clayman in whatever that fool's doing. Perhaps he would even call for Walpurgis. Who are you? Me? I'm the Emperor of Minava Empire. Carrion's eyes widened. Yes, you are right, Milim is my wife. Soon. That aside, from today on forward, your country and Frey's country will be our empire's vassals. Clayman's residence. Even though things were now in motion, Clayman was not feeling all happy. The reason was that his previous master, who supposed to be dead, cursed Lord Kazarim, had said he would come to him with his new body at the very night. So he had prepared his best to welcome him in this luxurious room of him. But it was already midnight, and yet there's no sight of his former master. Clayman sighed and walked toward his window. The moon illuminated the world beautifully. Clayman admired it. Even though he's demon lord who liked to manipulate people, he liked something artistic. That's why everything inside his office was all had art value within it. Clayman. Ah, finally. Clayman turned around, and for the first time after his master's death that he met again personally with that man, or now a woman. Next day, Tempest, a colossal being, flew in a fast speed toward Monster City. Tempest. It was surrounded by numerous sharks swimming on the air. Rimuro and his people and the army from Dwarf Kingdom were patiently waiting for the beast to get closer. They were ready to defeat the Charybdis, a beast that had some immunity to magic. Naruto, Milim, and Haku sat comfortably under the tree on the hill. Rimuro had wanted to handle the beast by themselves, so they let the slime to do as he pleased while they were sitting there with popcorn and drink on their hand. As soon as the beast was close enough, Rimuro instructed his army to begin attacking, and soon the sharks was killed one by one. What was left was Charybdis alone with its intimidating single big eye that staring at the people. Such an interesting display, don't you agree, dear? Yes, but Conan's underlings can do better than them. Naruto smiled. That should be obvious, dear. I'm the one who taught them to be a good umbu after all. Oomph. I can teach them better. Sure you can, Naruto said and continued eating popcorn with eyes looking at Rimuro, who was hovering before Charybdis. Rimuro sure is a good leader, but he is too naive and kind, but that kind of man is what this world needs. Look carefully, Milim, you can learn a few things from watching him and his people fighting to save their city. Okay, responded Milim as she ate her own popcorn. The fight was quite interesting. Despite Charybdis having a protection from magic, Rimuro and his people still managed to inflict damage on its colossal body. He didn't know how Rimuro could find Charybdis' weakness so easily. Perhaps he had a superior version of his extra skill, Master Tactician. Naruto couldn't find the answer. He had no skill that allowed him to know people's skills like that of Guy's, but according to Master Tactician that somehow had Kurama's voice, 99% Rimuro had a skill that's similar to his. Of course his skill refused to say which one was better. However, despite Rimuro managed to find its weakness, the fight was still continuing even until